Welcome to the final video of the mini train series. The final video is the assembly of the various parts that we have drawn. And so in the previous videos, we have drawn the 9 different parts: train body, stack, hitch magnet, hitch peg, the wheel, axle peg, linkage arm, linkage peg, and cow catcher. And now we will place those parts into an assembly file, and you'll learn how to use constraints and joining to put these parts together to create our final assembly. So you can kind of see them where the parts go, and then we scroll down, you can see the final assembled train, kind of what it's going to look like. And so we'll go ahead and open up Inventor. I'm going to open up a standard assembly, and we'll kind of do a quick tour here. And so in assembly files, it's different than parts. We're not creating necessarily new, new parts or things like that, so to speak. We are putting things together, and there's a couple of options. The first thing that we'll do is we have place, and so under assemble you have place, and this is where you bring in the parts. So if we're doing, we have our parts that we are, that we have drawn, the 9 different parts. We'll click on it. We'll go to the file or the folder where we have those saved, and then we can select each of our parts and hit open. And so we'll do part 1, and it gives you a little, view of what that is. We'll highlight, hit open. Now you can highlight and import all of these at one time, but I'm going to show you a couple of things, and I do that from time to time depending on what it is. But sometimes it's better to do one at a time. So we'll hit open, and when we hit open, we have the option of placing our part wherever we want. Now, the blue screen is kind of like we said in the parts file, it's kind of a, infinite space. So I'm just going to select a spot, but before I do so, you can kind of you can see the 3 arrows where the center of my train body, where my cursor is, and so those 3 arrows indicate my 3 different axes. So I have Y, X, and Z. Y is green, X is red, and Z is blue. Now, it's important to pay attention to those. If I right-click, I can rotate 90 degrees. So when I start bringing in different parts files, depending on how they were drawn, kind of what plane they were drawn on in the parts file, I might need to rotate them. And sometimes it's easier to rotate them now using these different buttons, rotate X, rotate Z, and rotate Y, instead of trying to do it after the fact. So train body is our main building block, so that one doesn't necessarily matter, but you can see how it rotates. But I'm going to go ahead and place it, so you'll just place it by clicking the left button. I will hit escape. You can place as many times as you want. I'm going to hit escape, and now a couple of things I'm going to do. I want to make sure that my front is correct as far as my cube goes here. I'm going to set current view as home fit to view. And what that means is I hit the little home button, it will bring it into screen. And then the last thing I'm going to do, and this makes it easier for me to keep track, everything is ABS plastic. So it's all right now in a look like the same, it's going to be the same color, and some of the parts will be hard to distinguish. What I do, and I do this on our, our shop projects that we go to show with, we go out in the shop, I change each part to be a different color. So I'm going to highlight that part in our browser, select, or adjust, and this adjust, it's the color, and I just kind of randomly click on the wheel, and I'll change the color. So now we have that. This is our train body. Now, before we bring in any more of our train parts, I want to show you a couple of features. Place from Content Center. So if you click on that, Place from Content Center, there is a whole library of materials, parts, things like that, that is saved in Inventor. So structural shapes, that is going to be, things like angle iron. We come back to angle iron, channel iron, I-beam, things like that. Metal that we use, this is all stuff that we're using in the shop. You can click on it, import it in, specify length. But also there are bolts, nuts, pins, rivets, washers. There's some other parts. Now some of these parts aren't real common to what we use. But the bolts, you can place bolts that are, click on it. You have different options on your bolts, hex head, and then you can come down, your filter here. You can change that if you need to. If you're needing a hex bolt that's in inches, you can place it. And what it's going to want to do is automatically kind of fit a bolt to a different or whatever size holes you have. And you can see it's changed to a 1/4 inch by 20 UNC. But you can add those. And in another video, I'll show you some different things from the internet that you can, websites you can go to and save parts like that as well. But we're going to go back, place. We're going to go to part 2. We need 1 stack. And so we're going to place our stack here. Again, our material in this didn't get saved as ABS, so I'm going to change it to ABS plastics. I'm going to change the material or adjust the color. And now I have my stack and I have my train body. So my train body is what I'm building everything off of. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to come down to grounded. And so I don't want the train body moving. So I'm going to select grounded. And what that does is if you look over on our browser, it puts a little pin here where now my train body, I click and drag, it will not move. I can still move my smokestack. I cannot move my train body. Now I want to start assembling. Here on our assemble tab toolbar, we have an area called relationships. And so there's a couple of different options. There's joint and constrain. I typically use constrain, and what you're doing, but these are what these are doing, before we get in more detail, they are applying relationships that will put these parts together where we want them. Typically, I use constraints more times than not. You can use joint, so I can select. We know that the cylinder part of our stack here will go in the hole, and so we select those. We'll hit apply, and then I'm going to exit out of it. So now I can only move up and down, right? And so we have, that is using joint, and joint kind of, the difference kind of between joint and constraint, joint kind of automatically will apply the relationships. Now, we want the bottom face here to match up with the bottom of our hole. And then hit OK. And so now our smokestack is in place. So, now I cannot move either one. You can see if I hit the plus sign here on our different parts, it'll show the different joint that we're doing. We did cylindrical and we did rotational. Now, like I said, you can use joint. I'm going to show you how to do most of the rest of it using constrain. Constrain to me is kind of second nature for what I've been doing. I'm going to come place, open up place. Now I want part 3 and 4. I'm going to place those at the same time. So I'm going to highlight them both, hit open, and then I'm going to right click and rotate X until I get them pointed the direction I want. So these are going on the back of the train. I'm going to hit escape. I can highlight them. They're both ABS plastic already. I'm going to change the color for one. And again, this color doesn't matter other than it kind of helps me. It helps me, distinguish between, different parts. So I'll show you constraint. So we'll click constrain. Now constrain, you have a couple of different options. You have assembly, you have offset. So if you want to offset it, a certain distance, you can do that. And then solution here, you have 2 options. And, I'll be honest, after 12, 13 years of doing this, a lot of times I'll still select the wrong one. You just select one, then you can select the other. If it's not moving how it wants, we have it where it shows preview. Now I'm gonna constrain my peg. This is my hitch peg and my hitch magnet. I want the cylindrical part of my peg to fit inside the hole of my magnet. And so when you're doing cylinders, it'll give you kind of a line highlighting the center point. I'm going to hit apply, and then I want this bottom face to mate with the top face there. And so you can see how that, how that works. And then I'll hit apply again. Now I want my peg. So now when I do this, it'll move both of them. My peg is going to line up with the center line of my hole. And so you can see how they've lined up. Hit apply. And then the last thing is I need to make this face with the back of my train body. And so hit OK. And so now we have our hitch peg and our hitch magnet. I'm going to place the next one. So our wheel, I'm going to select our wheel open. I'm just going to do the wheel by itself. Now I'm going to rotate the wheel on Z. So I need 2 facing outside this way. Then I'll rotate twice again and 2 facing the other way. So I can click and drag them. And I will change these. They are ABS plastic. Now I can change these to, we can do something fun. We'll do, we'll come up. This is kind of the appearance. And so I'm going to change it to where it is chrome. So polished chrome. And so now we have chrome wheels for our train. And we will constrain. Before we do that, we'll place our part 6, which is our axle peg. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate these to where they're facing the right direction. So rotate Z. So I need 2 facing that way. And then 2 facing the opposite. I'm going to constrain kind of like what I did with the hitch peg. I take the axle peg, made it on that center line, hit apply. I can do the same thing with the other 3. And then I want, and then if you cancel out of it where you click out, so I can move these, and you can see how it only moves in that hole. And so I want to make the faces and sometimes you'll need you can kind of scroll in and see. Sometimes if you need to, you can X out a constraint and move them. So I'm going to move that to where I can access them. So I want to constraint, make the bottom side of that axle peg with the face of my hub. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. And sometimes you'll have to click around to where you can get a better view of what you're needing. Hit apply. Now I can constrain my axle pegs to the holes in our train body. You can see the center lines made up. We'll do the same thing for the other side. This part sometimes gets kind of tedious as far as there's a lot that you're having to do. But once you kind of get the hang of it, you can go through it pretty quick. And some of this it's trial by error. And on your constraints, you can do the mate, which is what we're doing, just flat surfaces to flat surfaces. You can do angles, you can do tangents, and there's a lot of different options you can do there. Now the last thing we need to do is we'll do our the back of our wheels to the side of our train body. And if you have the previews turned on and it doesn't do what you want, you can just hit cancel. And usually it's one of these two buttons, either mate or flush, and you'll just select the other, the opposite. If you want, if you're doing offset and you need a specific distance offset, you can type it in. If it goes the wrong direction, you put a negative sign in front of it, and it'll move it the opposite direction. So that part's fairly easy. And then we'll finish up with our wheel here. So now we have our wheels and our axle pegs. We'll place our linkage arm. And so I'll rotate our linkage arm on the Y. And we have two of those. Hit escape. And then I'll highlight those. We'll change the color. And now I am going to constrain. I got two. I'm going to line up the holes in our linkage arm to our pegs on our wheels. And when we do this, if your measurements are not correct, it will not let you do the constraints. The constraints have to be spot on to the thousandth of an inch. And so, if there's something wrong with your measurements where you're not allowed to do the constraints, then you need to double check your measurements. that is a common issue, that measurements may be off by just a hair, but Inventor, it likes everything to be perfect. So, make sure you pay attention to that. So we'll hit apply. We'll do the other side. We can do the flush first. And then, so I cancel it. I can kind of move it where it makes a little more sense. Hit OK. And now you can see as I rotate the front wheel, both wheels are linked together. And that's kind of the nice thing about Inventor, as you get an idea of how things work in correlation with each other. Now, if you want both sides to be linked together, you can constrain them, say the linkage arms, or we can do, better yet, we'll do maybe the little pegs here. We can line them together, and so now you can see both sides are rotating at the same time. And so we'll do our pegs for our linkage arms, rotate, hit escape. We will change those. We'll just pick a random color. I'm going to come back to our axle pegs and change the colors there as well. I didn't do that earlier. And so, like I said, I just kind of randomly pick the colors. It just helps, keep things kind of straight on different parts. We'll place our pegs here. And if you click on that cube, you can kind of rotate where you can get views of what you need. And so we'll finish this up and flush it. Now, so on this, I accidentally highlighted the front. I can come back here to where it says selections and right click, or not right click, I just select second option, and then I can select what I need to. So if you ever click something that's not the face you're wanting, then you can go back and change it here in selection. And so got the linkage pegs. Now the last thing we will place is the cow catcher, and so I'll rotate that. I'm going to hit escape, change and so now on this I should just have to line up 2 of the 3 holes, as long as I select the right holes. Constraint, and so now I can select one of the other holes, And then I'm going to select the back of the cow catcher and the front of the train, hit OK, and now I have a finished assembly of my train. You know, if we want to, you know, now change all the parts to be one color, we can highlight everything using Shift, and then I can come and, you know, I can select color. But like I said, it's kind of hard to tell the different parts when you do all the same color. And so, anyways, that is the assembly. Like I said, assembly, you can play around joints and constraints. I've never really worked with assemble here, but those, you know, you can assign, you know, relationships, things of that nature. It works real well. And, you know, you can have multiple, you know, in an assembly, you can have multiple parts, but then you can also go on and have multiple assemblies into an assembly file. And so, you know, you can create sub-assemblies. If you have a big project, you can do different parts and different assemblies and bring those into a final product. Anyways, we'll save it, file, save as, and then I'm going to call it final train assembly, and then my name. So, thank you for watching. That is the conclusion of our mini train series. If you get a chance, go watch those. And if you have any suggestions or comments, feel free to share them. Thank you.